Look, I like what Nintendo makes as a company. I like their games, I like their IPs, I like their products. I really do. I like the Switch, maybe super underpowered, we'll get to that later, but I love the form factor, I love the idea behind it, having that home console on the go with you. The innovation, the crazy things that they try out with like the Wii and the Nintendo Wii U, which, that one failed, but it was still interesting. It was unique, and that's something I really like about Nintendo. I'm saying all that before I say how much I hate Nintendo for how much they already hate their fans. Yeah, the hate goes both ways. Because Nintendo, if you've been paying attention over the years, they really seem to hate their fans. They've gone after Smash tournaments for simply existing, even though, the Smash scene was thriving because of third-party support, not Nintendo. They shut that shit down. Nintendo has gone out of their way to kill every single fan game that has anything to do with an IP that they own. Somebody tried to make a Pokemon MMO. There was going to be a Metroid 2 remake. There was a full-screen Mario website that was really cool. There was that Super Mario 64 PC port that they took down. Anything that someone tries to make without Nintendo's approval is immediately killed. What does Sega do? They hire them. Speaking of killing things, Nintendo keeps trying to kill Nintendo Emulation because they took down a bunch of ROM sites and they've gone after people that were hacking their Switches and selling hacks for Switches. They went after a guy that was selling hacks for the Switches. Okay, this just shows how petty Nintendo is. They went after this guy for $10 million. Succeeded, by the way. And he went to prison for several years for selling Nintendo Switch hacks. That's insane. And now we have Nintendo going after something that is perfectly legal just because they're a little butthurt about what happened with Tears of the Kingdom before it came out. Tears of the Kingdom was downloaded apparently 1 million times before its release date because it leaked online. Was this YUZU's fault? No. But because all of those websites that were putting that game out there for download, they were showing you where you could actually play it, which was on an emulator, and that emulator that they pointed to was YUZU. So just because YUZU's name was next to an illegally dumped ROM of a game that was not out yet, they're getting essentially blamed for it, and they're getting the brunt of this attack. And the real scary thing here is that not only would we lose YUZU, the Switch emulator, which would suck, first of all, because you can't play Switch games at 60 frames per second, 1080p on your Switch. Most games do not run that well. Most games don't look that good. They go after YUZU, and they are successful. Not only are we losing the YUZU emulator, we are going to lose potentially all emulators. Because that opens a massive can of worms, where now suddenly if Sony feels like it, which I'll get to in a second as well, if Sony feels like it, they can go after emulators, and then suddenly game preservation is gone. And we already know what Nintendo thinks about game preservation with the fact that they've shut down the 3DS store, they shut down the Wii store, they shut down the Wii U store. They don't care. They don't care about game preservation because there's no profit in it. And that's what they care about. That's it. They're a company. As much as you love Nintendo and as much as I love their products, them as a company, they hate you. They hate me. If I'm not giving them money, they couldn't give a shit if I'm alive. And that's the cold reality that you need to come to terms with. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that will just defend Nintendo to the death. There's a lot of people that will defend all these different companies, Xbox, PlayStation. These companies don't care about you. So going after other people that are speaking out about something that is going to ruin video games as a whole, it's counterintuitive. You're going against yourself here. Game preservation needs to happen because the game producers are not doing it. And maybe I could see that if this was during the Nintendo Wii U era, where Nintendo was sinking. The CEO had to take several pay cuts just to pay people and keep the company afloat. We're not in that era anymore. We're just not. Nintendo is doing incredible with the Switch. They sold 140 million Switches. They sold 1.2 billion software units. They've made an incredible amount of money with this system. They started charging for online and then gave us essentially nothing, which comes back to the game preservation part, where they don't even do that with any monetized way. There's no way that we can just pay Nintendo to play N64 games and Super Nintendo games and NES games and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance and all these other systems that they've stopped supporting. Because the Nintendo Online, they've just slowly dragged their feet and put a couple of games on there every month. It's like, and half the time they're games I've never even heard of and people don't care about. Their game library on Nintendo Online is a joke. And sometimes they've even had problems when they first came out. I remember when some of the N64 games came out, people were having issues with them. They were having frame rate problems. They were having controlling problems. There was lag in the input. There were so many different issues. Whereas there are other emulators online right now that you can use that are 60 frames per second, triple, quadruple the resolution. You can play these games like you could never play them before, and you still can't play on the Nintendo Switch. And the thing is it's so petty of Nintendo, and it really shows how much they hate you and me, because Sony doesn't do this. I don't think I've ever seen Sony in the news going after a ROM site. I don't think Sony has ever done something like that. So I understand Nintendo going after people selling Switch hacks. I really do. But come on, guys. You're really going to go after emulators just because Tears of the Kingdom leaked before launch? I need them to show me that this actually hurt them in some way for me to even consider being on their side. But even then I can't, because emulators are legal. And I know they're trying to argue that the emulator company makes money from Patreon, from donations. They make $30,000 a month, which Nintendo would just laugh at. That's like nothing to them. They make so much money. They're arguing that YUZU should be taken down because it has code that defeats Nintendo's security measures. But that's just to get the emulation to work. That's not illegal. They're not doing it on a Switch. They're not hacking your system, and they're not selling it. It is free. It is open source. And that $30,000 isn't payments for it. It's donations by people that care about game preservation. I mean, I'm sure they're huge Nintendo fans. They just want to be able to play their library not only on the Switch itself, but on their computer. They want to experience it to its maximum potential, and the Nintendo Switch is not the place for it. If Nintendo wants to really argue their case, they should show that the Nintendo Switch is the best place to play their games. And it's not. They can't say that because they're not hitting frame rates that are anywhere near what is good. They're constantly seeing frame dips. They're constantly below 60. They're constantly below 1080p, even docked. Just because your console is incredibly underpowered and people want to also play it to their maximum potential, they shouldn't be punished for that. So I'm hoping they lose. And I'm hoping that the next console that Nintendo puts out is still unique, because I do love how unique they are with how they make their products. But I want it to be a lot more functional. And I feel like I'm not alone there. Let me know what you guys think about this whole story, how you think it's going to play out, how you feel about emulation. And of course, like the video if you guys liked it, subscribe for more content, and as always, have a fantastic day. See you, everybody.